By the time my grandfather died in 1979, he was an ultra-conservative, and me? I was on my way to becoming one of those kids he lampooned so mercilessly in Little Abner, a student wildly indignant about nearly everything, or swine. To me, he seemed out of sync with the times, but it wasn't always like that.
We visit the artist who is perhaps the leading favorite of college students and grown-ups who like their humor exaggerated to the extent of fairy tales.
My grandfather was funny, and he was opinionated, and Little Abner was his running commentary on 4 decades of American culture. The setting was the backwoods hamlet of Dogpatch with its bizarre inhabitants, Hairless Joe, Moonbeam McSwine, the Jinx with the unpronounceable last name that Capp gave out as Joe, and of course Sadie Hawkins, inspiration for the dances that are celebrated on campuses to this day. You had the villains, Senator Fogbound, General Bullmoose, and a host of other unsavory characters, always looking for suckers to swindle or seduce. And you had the Yokums. Not exactly heroes. They were honest, all right, but they were also ignorant. They were patriotic to the point of stupidity, and Little Abner and Pappy were always trying to avoid work and always ready to eat poke chops.
He was an equal opportunity satirist. It didn't matter what social group, what age, Al had an opinion on it. And it didn't matter where the frauds came from or the phonies, Al was going to deal with it.
Abner Yoakum has just told the president that if the Yoakumberry tests are successful, he will give all rights of his fabulous drug to the government itself. Private industry is up in arms.
Fogbound, you idiot. Fogbound, you bumbling nincompoop. Didn't you tell Yoakum of my offer of $1 million for the rights to manufacture that drug?
I did, General Bullmoose, but he says he's only interested in what's good for the USA.
What's good for General Bullmoose is what's good for the USA. And by Dow Jones and all their little averages, don't you forget it. Right, boys?
Right. 3 rousing rahs, a few huzzas, and a hip, 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 hooray. What's good for General Bullmoose is good for the USA.
Gentlemen, you represent the world's most powerful gasoline interests. I call this meeting to inform you that I have personally murdered 2 human beings to protect us. You, Fang Bottom? But you're a pillar of society. Why did you do such a thing? Why? Because of a piece of paper. On it was written a simple formula that would enable even a moron to produce huge quantities of super gasoline so cheaply and so easily that our entire industry would collapse if anyone lived who had seen that paper. I killed the inventor because he had seen the paper. I killed a little old lady because she had seen the paper. Then I destroyed the paper.
Mostly the satirical targets were obvious, but what about the shmoo?
I hear strange music. Little Abner follows the music to the valley of the Schmoon. Yo is a cute whatever yo is. What's your name? Shmoo. Is there any more at home like yo? Sure, stupid. Billions of them. Look, it laid an egg. Naturally, they lays eggs at the slightest excuse. They also gives milk. And as for meat, broiled they makes the finest steaks. Fried, they come out the yummiest chicken and all white meat, mind you. He dropped dead. When you looks at a shmoo as though you'd like to eat him, he dies of sheer happiness. I'll never have to do another lick of work for the rest of my natural life. Then you'll have plenty of time for love.
The success of shmoo merchandising was something right out of Little Abner. There were shmoo dolls and pins, clocks and rings, shmoo songs and treasury bonds, even shmoo deodorizers. Shmoos filled with chocolate were dropped as part of President Truman's Berlin airlift in 1948. My grandfather explained that he created the shmoos when he asked himself,
what would happen if we really had everything we wanted? Could we bear it? That poor showgirl has been unemployed so long, she'll even go out with me for a square meal. You can take that steak and slap your own fat face with it. There's good schmooze tonight. It started in Dogpatch, and it spread all over the nation. Businessmen panic at the loss of sales. Schmooze must be exterminated before they ruin business altogether. Gentlemen of the press, radio, and TV, you must convince all America that our only hope of salvation is to kill schmooze. Will the average American citizen do as his government begs him? Does he ever? Eventually, the goon squad gets sent out. Ready, aim, fire! Reckon it's un-American of me to cry over what's happening to them sweet, lovable little schmooze.
Editorials in Time and Life magazine saw schmooze as a celebration of the American economic system. Others saw a critique of big business, a symbol of repressed sexuality, a celebration of the pleasure principle. At the end of his life, my grandfather wrote,
All it ever meant was that the earth will provide anything we all want if we don't destroy it. Yet every year, every country spends more and more for arms. That isn't what the schmoo meant.
almost sounds like an environmentalist, but that probably says more about me. And maybe that was my grandfather's genius, the ability to tap into a reservoir of images from some kind of collective unconscious. Senator Joe McCarthy's anti-communist campaign really cramped his style.
Something threatens to shackle me in my kind of comic strip. My strip finds fun wherever there's lunacy, and American life is rich in lunacy everywhere you look. For the first 15 years, I reveled in the freedom to laugh at America. But now America has changed. Now there are things about America we can't kid.
I think that one of the shifts in his attitude came with the civil rights program. He had been a member of the NAACP. He was not, certainly not racist at all. But his idea was that they needed jobs, not money, and not welfare. And he thought that program didn't provide that.
His objections to the civil rights movement paled in comparison to his fury against the youth movement and the protest against Vietnam.
The 60s were a love affair of America gone wrong, and he really disliked the dissent of the kids in the 60s. He took it personally.
I'm a dreadful Neanderthal fascist. How do you do? That's a nice introduction. I read something that you said that you were very shy people in the globe. If that isn't a picture of two shy people, I'd like to know what shyness is. Oh, what filth.
Do you think that's filth?
Certainly not. I'm denouncing people who think it is.
Thank you.
I think that everybody owes it to the world to prove they have pubic hair. And you've done it. You've done it, and I tell you that I applaud you for it.
Shortly after that, I remember being woken up by a late-night call from Nixon wanting to consult my grandfather on a speech. Nixon. It seemed to me that he had sided with those who wanted to crush the schmoo after all.
Al began to align himself with the power brokers, and that was not something we knew Al Capp for. And maybe had he lived longer, he would have swung back, because you could never pin Al down. He was, if anything, if there was one thing you could be sure about Al Capp, he was unpredictable.
This project is partly my attempt to understand my grandfather's shift and to reflect on the division that racked American society in the 60s and 70s and that continue to affect us to this day. But for now, at least, we'll let him have the last word.
I'm always astonished when anyone calls me a conservative. I was once a champion of liberalism until it got drunk with sanctimoniousness. If it ever sobers up, I'll champion it again. I haven't changed, not one bit.
Something within ourselves changes. Maybe our judgment is better. Maybe the world changes, and we can see it more clearly. Or, on the other hand, it may be that his kids were brilliant and his old men were bitter old fools. Take your choice.
Yeah,